Hey there, Fletch from All Things Overlanding here. On today's video, I'm going to be talking about this big boy, the Okmo 1000WH portable power generator. This thing is sweet. It has so much capacity, it's ridiculous. I took it on a 4-day, 4-night overlanding trip to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, about 12 hours away from where I live, and I powered my fridge off this, I charged my drone batteries, I kept my watch and iPhone going off of this thing for 4 days, and it still had power when I got back, without charging it or anything. It was awesome. So there are a few pros of it, there are a few cons of it. I'm going to kind of go through my opinions of it. I'm going to go through sort of the things that I've observed with it, some of the features of it, and again, give you my final thoughts at the end. So I hope this is helpful for you. If you have any questions, of course, post up in the comments below. But without further ado, let's dive into talking about the Okmo 1000WH portable power generator. All Things Overlanding is brought to you by some fantastic companies. You should definitely check out the description and click through their links to see all the awesome stuff they offer. Companies like Red Arc for all your overlanding power management needs. Last US Bag, tons of amazing quality overlanding bags. Rugged Bound Supply Company, rooftop tents, awnings, roof racks, and more. And Northology Overland, guided overlanding trips and a free overlanding magazine. As you can see here, I'm going to keep the focus not on me, it's not about me, but about the power pack. So I'm going to keep the focus on the front of this thing and just kind of walk you through, again, the features, all the charging ports and all that good stuff. I'm going to talk about, my use of it, how I've, used it so far, and the pros and cons that I've seen. So let's start with the form factor, right? First of all, I really like how this thing looks. I've got a 300-watt-hour portable power generator. It's kind of like orange and gray, and I think it's kind of to be a knockoff of Jackery, but it's just not as cool looking. I like the all black. I like sort of the the top of it here. Pretty cool looking. The handles are really nice. I do kind of wish that they folded in, but they don't stick out a whole lot, so it's not a problem at all for the way that they are, and where they're located makes it really easy to lift and move this thing around. So actually the form factor I really like. I like the black color. This center section here is made of metal, so it's really stout. I like that just in case if it's sitting in the back of my truck and charging things, or if it's gets knocked over or something. It's made of some pretty resilient materials here. Then the top and the bottom are made of like a really thick, hard plastic. So it's not soft at all. It's a really hard plastic. You might want to be careful. I could see one of these handles snapping if you dropped it, but as long as you're careful. It's fairly heavy too, so it shouldn't move around a whole lot once you sort of set it down. Just so you know, the weight of this thing is about 30 pounds. So again, it is not a super light thing. You probably want to find a place where you can kind of set this and maybe strap it down and then just use it. But the benefit of having something like this, a portable power station, is that if you lost power or something and you needed to take it into your house, this thing has enough capacity even to run a lot of electronics in your house for like a couple days. Again, for like overlanding like I do, this thing is great because I don't have to worry about continuously trying to charge it or anything like that. It has so much capacity that I can just, run the thing and keep things charged and just not worry about charging it till I get home. So again, this does have 10 ports on the front of it. You get 3 AC, and basically in order to turn these on or to activate them, you just hit this AC button. Now you'll notice I hit it and it didn't come on because there is a master power button here. So you hit that to actually turn the thing on. You hit the AC button. It is smart enough to be able to tell if something's plugged into it or not. So like right now, it's not going to do anything because nothing is plugged in. But if something were plugged in and you hit the AC button, it will activate this whole panel here with these 3 AC plugs, and it'll start charging whatever's plugged in. Then over here, you've got your DC, right? So you've got a couple of smaller, like 5mm 12-volt outs. I personally don't have anything that I could run off this, but I'm sure there are things. And then of course you got your sort of standard old school cigarette style plug like you would have in your car. So you can run things off DC there. And this I like how they've done this with these white lines, so you can sort of see that everything in this panel here is going to be activated by hitting this DC plug or DC button here. Then you got your USB-C fast charging, and then you've got your old school sort of regular old USB-A charging ports as well. So you can plug in a variety of things, right? A lot of newer devices run off USB-C. It actually will push more voltage out. Again, this whole panel works just like the rest, where you have to hit that button to tell it to turn that section on. But that is, your options there. And then over here on this panel, there's no button because this is input. So you can either plug in an Anderson plug from, say, a solar panel. This will accept up to 200 watts at one time by plugging in two 100-watt solar panels. So you can do that. That's an option. Or you can charge it through DC in. The cool thing about this is, though, this thing also comes with an AC adapter and a DC adapter. So you have one that comes with it for your car, or you have one that comes with it for your house. I generally just keep this thing plugged in my basement in my house on AC, and then I unplug it when I'm ready to go on a trip. I will take the DC plug with me just in case I need to charge it up off my alternator from the car during the day. But for the most part, this thing has so much capacity that I don't have to worry about it on most trips. Another really cool thing about this that I liked was they give you a 24-month quality assurance warranty on it. So obviously if you damage it, they're not going to fix it. But if it were to fail for some reason on its own within the first 24 months of you owning it, or 2 years, they're going to repair it or replace it free of charge, which is just a really nice feature. It makes you feel better because it is a really large purchase. This thing's been sort of fluctuating in price, but it generally goes somewhere between about $750 and $900 for this unit. Currently, at the time that I'm making this video, it's about $900 with a $150 coupon off. There will be a link in the description below to go check it out. So if you want to get something like this, again, right now the price is down on it, so you may want to pick it up before prices go up. All right, so let me kind of give you my final thoughts, right? So the capacity is awesome on this thing. I love how much capacity it's got. Being able to charge so many things for so long is amazing. Again, the form factor is really nice. I like the number of plugs that you've got. You've got plenty, 3 AC plugs. You've got the USB-C and a couple of USB-A's. For me, that was more than sufficient to sort of keep all my stuff running, to keep everything charging on that 4-day trip that I mentioned. So I really like the amount of plugs. I like the usability. Those are the pros. Now, here are my cons, my only complaints, if you will, about this unit. One is, you can see when you turn on the power, all that you get is this little, 5-bar system. So you only know in 20% increments, right? You only know if you've got, if you're at 82%, it's going to look like you have a full battery, and then all of a sudden it's going to drop and you're going to actually be at 80%. So that is one thing. I like the ones that are percentages, that show percentages, because they're more accurate. It just gives me a better idea of where I'm actually at on the power instead of having to kind of guess with the 5 bars. But that's just a little complaint, right? It's not a huge deal. It's really not a big deal at all. But just one thing that I noticed immediately with this for this price point was that it didn't have that, a percentage thing. And then number 2, and this is probably my biggest complaint, but it's not abnormal at all. It's kind of one of the things with these is if you're going to run a fridge off this. So if you're like me and you're an Overlander and you've got a fridge in your vehicle, that may be what you're looking at this for. The really tough thing about it is if you run it off DC, which is the most effective way to do that, it has a smart controller built into it. So just like your fridge does, right? So your fridge is going to draw power. It's going to cool the fridge. Once it hits the target temperature, it's going to shut off, right? It's going to try and conserve power. So it's going to try not to pull. After a set amount of time, I think it's about 10 minutes or so on this unit, this is going to say, hey, nothing's drawing power, and it's going to turn off. The problem with that is then the fridge doesn't have power to tell you that it's warming up and that it needs to turn back on. So charging or running a fridge off of this unit is pretty tough to do. What you would have to do, the only workaround that I found, well, there's 2 of them actually, but neither one's ideal, but here are some ideas in case that you do want to do this with this unit anyways. Again, it's not a bad unit. You could totally use it. You just have to be aware of these limitations, right? So 2 options for how you could run a fridge off this. So one thing is that you could plug your fridge into the DC port, like the car cigarette charger port, and then you could plug something else into DC as well. So something like a battery pack, like a little 20,000 milliamp hour battery pack that I want to recharge. It doesn't draw a lot of power, but as long as that's plugged in, it will also stay on for the fridge. So as long as something is pulling power from it, then it will keep the DC part of the battery pack on, and it will keep your fridge running. So that's one workaround. But it's not ideal, right? Because it's going to charge that thing up, and then that thing's going to stop drawing power, and then the unit's going to shut off again anyways. But it's an option. If you had a bunch of things that you could keep swapping out and you could mess with that, that's an option. Option number 2 is what I typically do, and I've done this not on this unit, but on my 300 watt hour battery pack. You could run your fridge. So my fridge came with an AC and a DC plug. You could plug your AC plug into this, and just run your fridge off AC. It's less efficient than DC, but it gets the job done. You're just going to run through this battery a little bit quicker. For reference, on my 300 watt hour battery, I ran my Alpacool CF55, I'll put a link in the description below, for about 14 hours in the summer off of my 300 watt hour unit. So I would anticipate this is probably about 3 times that, maybe a little more. So call it a day and a half that you could get in between charges on this, running a fridge off AC, at least in my case. So again, if you could charge it off the truck, your vehicle all day long while you're driving, it may still work, right? It still has so much capacity that it could work pretty well even on AC. Or if you go on shorter trips, it's still going to be fine, right? But so that's the only sort of negative that I would say the unit has, is it doesn't have regulated constant power for DC. But other than that, again, really nice looking unit for the price. I mean, it beats the pants off everything else, right? Everything else is significantly more expensive. So if you can make do with some of the limitations on this unit, it's really a great unit and a great inexpensive way to get a huge, independent power source that you could pull out and use at your house, or pull out and use for your kids if they're, camping in a tent and you want to take this out and let them charge their iPads or something off that. You could totally do that. So overall, I really like the unit. I think it's a great buy. Again, I hope that's helpful. If you have questions, post up in the comments down below. If you have any feedback, you've used this unit, I'd love to hear from you as well. If you're not already, make sure to click that subscribe button, click the bell to be notified when new videos drop. I do gear reviews all the time. I talk about overlanding stuff, so I'd love to have you as a subscriber. Also in the description are links to all the products I mentioned in this video, and Facebook, Instagram, podcast, Patreon page. I've got a newbie Overlanders group on Facebook if you want to join that. Just check out the description for all those links, and I'd love to hear from you. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.